Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about big time banksters, the banks, the monetary secret society, the real controllers of the United States and most of the world. So, I want to talk about the Federal Reserve and who controls the money in the United States. This is really important because everybody listening to this show, everybody that doesn't listen to this show, they're all affected by what the Federal Reserve does because you live in a capitalist society. Money makes this world go around. So before we get into all that, I'm going to give you two books you can read to really give you a better understanding about the subject matter. The first is The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. That one goes deep, way deep. The other is Secrets of the Temple, William Greeter. And both of those, you can find them. They're still in print. But the first one, Secrets of the Temple, I saw that at an Afro-American bookstore in the 90s. And I'm like, wow, this book is about real power. Because like all the books I was looking at in that bookstore, they were about, ancient Egypt. And there was Behold the Pale Horse was in there. And all the other books about, either black history or there were some books about agendas or what people call conspiracies at that time. But this book itself was deadly serious. I pretty much put this book on the same level as the doublespeak book. So that when you understand what doublespeak is, and then you read this book about the secrets of the temple and how the Federal Reserve controls everything, you start to really peel back the invisible layers. It ties into so many other things because you see the mindset that is the glue that holds that type of architecture together.
Look, one of the craziest things is when you find out, like the book, The Wizard of Oz, ain't like the movie, and the book was based on things like that. I can't remember where I found it or how. I saw a documentary that referred me to a book, and it breaks down the whole Wizard of Oz. And it wasn't a yellow brick road; it was a silver road, and it talks about how, for whatever reason, the Federal Reserve went off the gold and silver standard, and they break all this shit down. And so, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about the Federal Reserve is that it's a corporation that's privately owned, and it's not even a government entity. And then once you start there, then everything starts making even less sense. Because the name Federal Reserve, you would assume that it's a government entity. Like we vote on these people, and all. Nope, nada. We have no control of what they do, but they impact everything from interest rates to your ability to get a home, your ability to get credit, which I hate credit. They impact everything, and they're not even. You can't even vote on these people. You have no say so.
Yeah, that's what they call the deep state. And the deep state are the individuals that are not voted into their position. They're appointed the same way judges are.
Yep.
So, but see, I think the Wizard of Oz had a lot to do with socialism and communism by the time it was written.
When you check it, like I said, because of the documentary, I go start reading this book, and this shit is like it's all about it's all about the financial situation. It's not, and it's just like what you're talking about with these other books. It just opens up your mind to like, oh, you're not educated, you're indoctrinated. You're sitting here and you believe like, okay, we got to go through this, or when they talk about the interest rates and oh man, they're looking out for the people. Like shit, they are. But how, like you said, how is this entity so powerful? But it ain't voted on.
Okay,
I ain't got no say so.
Here's something to consider. When Jesus lost his temper, who did he lose his temper at?
Yeah,
it was at the money changers.
Yep.
It was in the temple, and there was like this little like bizarre marketplace area.
They were making lots. They were having a lottery inside the temple.
And it was the money changers that he lost his shit over. Because he saw that how they were manipulating people and how they were encouraging a certain mindset. They were encouraging greed. And those are the people that he fucking lost his shit, and he fucking grabbed their tables and he flipped them over, causing the money to go all over the place, causing chaos. So those same type of people are the ones that control the Federal Reserve. They're the money changers. They're the money makers. They're the money creators. But, okay, the Federal Reserve was created in the early 1900s. And really, it was a bunch of guys that got together in this elitist hideaway. It was this island off the coast of Georgia. And I was not far from there recently. It was crazy. So anyway, these powerful bankers and wealthy people and politicians got together off the coast of Georgia on Jekyll Island. And they got together and they created a way to centralize the banks and centralize all the money in the U.S. and bring it under control. But to control these things, they had to find a way to track and control people. And this is how Social Security numbers were created. And Social Security numbers provided a way to create what people would think are a way of getting your dividends returned to you when you retire from your work life. But that's what it is on the surface. If you look on the back of your Social Security card, I'm going to pull one out of my wallet right now. If you look on the back of your Social Security card, it tells you this should not be used for identification.
Yeah, it was supposed to be bookkeeping. That's what they preach to us. This is just bookkeeping. This has no real not value. Has no other meaning in bookkeeping for the government.
Right, but you also have to consider that your birth certificates are traded as commodities on a market. Yes, on an exchange, because you're chattel to these people. But let's go into a lot about how you need to understand why these things really don't have your best interest. These banks don't have your best interest. So there are 12 regional Federal Reserve dollar printing locations. 12 locations that mint. They create money. They print money. But this was admitted by the Bank of New York that they're private. They're privately owned. These have nothing to do with the government. The only thing governmental about them is the name Federal. That's it. They're privately owned.
It's just a name. It's just a title.
Like FedEx.
You can name me Michael Jordan. Don't mean I can play basketball. It's a brand that sounds official, and we run with the shit.
Okay, so they print paper money and coins. They create coins, but they also create what they call reserves. And reserves are digital dollars. And so, but see, when you go to a bank to borrow some money, it's an IOU that's written to you, as in I owe me. Because what this is money that they're going to give you, they'll write you a check or they'll give you the money, but it's the reserve money that you're borrowing.
Look,
you're not borrowing a hard asset. You're not borrowing anything tangible.
Look this shit up. Do you remember a few years back when we had the whole big government shutdown and they wanted to balance the budget? What did they suggest? They wanted to print a $2 trillion coin, a giant coin made of platinum, to balance the budget. And they would have printed that coin and gave it to the government themselves. And instead, they voted against it. They did something else. Look it up. They were going to create a... No. I know you know. I'm talking for the public. And so when you think about that, the reason that's bad and good, so we would have balanced the budget in one fell swoop. But then that also means money don't have the value you think it does. like if you could print a $2 trillion bill or create a coin that's worth that you say has the value $2 trillion, but it is only probably worth maybe a few million, maybe a billion, because it was this huge platinum coin they were talking about minting. So that means that the government can decide the value of the money. Money ain't got no value without that. But yeah, they were looking to balance the budget by doing that shit. This is a shell game. You're moving shit around, giving titles and saying things have value they don't have. That's all it is.
So these names, they pop up over and over and over. The Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Rockefellers.
Yep.
These names represent families that came from Europe to America to exploit this country for its resources and the labor. They are the ruling class, the hidden ruling class from Europe that came here to exploit people. But so, continuing, we'll come back to those families in a second, but continuing with the banks. So, okay. Understand that banks control inflation, recessions, and depressions, right? So these private banks, what they want to do is to get the public money into private hands is they buy up all the assets at pennies on the dollar. And this is called pumping and dumping.
But remember, we're told that the economy controls all those different things. Whether the economy is good, the economy is bad. But no, the Federal Reserve controls interest rates at a whim.
Yes. So, okay, over time, what has been done? With the introduction of this system in the early 1900s, there was an expansion of public funds. So, with America developing after the Civil War, there was all this growth. And the wealth began to spread because they got the Native Americans off the land. The whites used Africans to build up their wealth with free labor and utilizing the land that was stolen from Native Americans. And so this generational wealth begins to build up, and all these people are putting their money into banks. And so what then begins to happen is there's expansion and then there's contraction. It begins to shrink or compress. And this is being done artificially. So there's this flexing that's going on, expanding and contracting. And so they created a debt-based economy. And in a debt-based...
We will be holding to foreign banks. That's a big deal, too. We'll discuss that in a minute.
In a debt-based monetary system, they can cancel loans overnight. And this contraction and this canceling of loans overnight causes people to default. And many people, because they may not have a margin for this type of compression or contraction, then they're forced to foreclose, or they have to forfeit some of these properties are seized by the bank, right?
Yep.
And so this contraction is a way of buying back all those properties that they made money off of. Now they can sell them to another bank for pennies on the dollar. So that's a pumping and dumping. But this has been done many times. It was done in 1893, 1907, 1929, and 2008. But in 1929, the money supply contracted 30% over 4 years. So this was done intentionally over 4 years because they knew a war was coming, because a war had been planned. See, this war had been planned by these three of these major ruling families: the Morgans, the Rothschilds, and the Rockefellers. So they knew.
Are you talking about the Civil War? Which war are we talking about?
This is 1929. So
okay. I thought you were talking about before that. Excuse me.
Right. So Germany had been embarrassed in the First World War. And so they knew that, all these young men will go back home to Germany after losing the war, disgraced. And so they had this hate towards America and England. And
Americana, period.
yeah, that's all surface and superficial. And so they're making these peasants fight against each other. This is basically the Squid Game on a large scale, or Hunger Games on a large scale. Now, check this out. So now you have these people coming back to Germany, and they've been demoralized, to get their ass kicked, and this is the perfect atmosphere for a guy like Hitler to come along and galvanize all these people that were these separate, disparate groups. You had these pagans, and you had these people who were all into like these crystals and runes and shit, and then you had all these different groups, and nationalists and white nationalists, all these different groups brought together under Hitler. So we talked about this in many podcasts ago, many episodes ago, when we were talking about the true evil.
Well, look, it's a couple things. You got to peel it back, but there were two presidents that were against the banks. You remember Andrew Jackson? We learned about that in school. He hated banks. There was a reason for that. And Abraham Lincoln, because there was a civil war, and we didn't have enough money, so these same families existed back then. They thought we were going to borrow money from them. And Abraham Lincoln said no, and that's when he created the greenback and based it on gold and all that kind of stuff. So when you realize that they've been playing the same game for years, this whole war thing, I hate to tell you, war is rich people making money, and like my brother's telling you, poor people fight each other for these wars, and the money goes to somebody else.
Right, but what happens during a war? The
economy goes up.
The economy goes down, because what happens is jobs are hard to find. The economy is not thriving because all of the money is being put into the war effort.
Look, spending goes down, but the economy goes up because of so much work. Remember that was the big deal with World War II. Like all the women were working all that.
No. The conditions that led to World War II. See, World War II happened at the tail end of a depression, so there was already depression. So hold on. See, this is how having old parents helps, because they were alive to tell you how shit was. So let me tell you, or let me remind you of some shit that George Mack said to me when I was a boy. He said that times were hard during the war. He said not just for black people, but for white people too. So the economy was not great during World War II. No. See, this is why you ask a person who was alive back then. There was no money around. All the money was going into the war. All the men were being shipped off to war. And women did a lot of the manufacturing jobs. So, no, the economy was not great during World War II. Don't drink that Kool-Aid at all. Okay, that's that fucking lie. So, getting back to what I was saying before we get too far off track. Germany was disgraced. Hitler got them riled up, got everybody crunk, ready to go fucking fight. And he got funding from George Bush, Prescott Bush. This is George W.'s grandfather, right? George Bush the First's father. This guy was putting money into the Nazis. And when you go and you look at New York Times articles from the 1930s, they're agreeing with a lot of shit that Hitler is saying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of socialists. There were a lot of socialists that were working for that newspaper that were down with a lot of shit that Hitler was saying until he came out and he had that magical ceremony, and he had the altar of Zeus brought and put into Germany, and he had that ceremony. We talked about the final solution, which was casting a spell on Jews. That's when he lost everybody at the New York Times. Up until then, those motherfuckers were down when they were riding with him. So this shows. Whoa. This shows how the news was used to spread propaganda before this modern time.
Before you go to war, you have a war in the media against the people you're fighting. They make them less than human. You got to attack. But for the record, my brother's telling you, like, social Nazism is not about the killing Jews and not liking black people. It's about socialism.
It's
We
hyper
fought,
socialism wrapped in nationalism.
bingo. And so,
But the reason why people were so on board with Hitler, because he gave them direction. These people were taking barrels of money to buy milk and bread. I'm talking about barrels of money because their dollar was worth nothing.
Hey, what was the currency back then? Remember he flooded the market with that currency, then changed it to the Deutschmark or whatever. That was the whole deal.
Rubles.
You started buying up.
No, rubles are Russian. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. It was something before it was the Deutschmark or something else. I don't want to give the wrong information, but
Right.
he flooded the market with his currency, knowing he was going to change it. That's some dirty shit. If me or you did that, can you imagine if we sit and bought a bunch of money on credit, then shut that? Oh, that company doesn't exist anymore. Not like, yeah.
Right. So we've absorbed all their debt, and now we need you to pay back, and you have 30 days to do it. What? I don't have the money to do that. Oh, okay. Well, your loans have been canceled, but now you have to pay us. And well, hold on. I have a farm. Or give us the deed to the farm, and we will forgive your debt.
Yeah, Hitler did just the opposite. He bought all that shit with basic counterfeit money.
Yeah,
money.
But what I'm talking about here is what the banks are doing and have been doing. So by canceling all the loans and causing a recession or depression, you're reducing the money supply, and then that buys the assets for the cheap by these now bankrupt lenders. So these people have like gone bankrupt. You can buy them for cheap now, dude. It's like a fire sale.
What's worse, inflation helps. Here's the crazy part: we don't like inflation, but if you're high in debt, inflation actually helps you because the money you borrowed was down here is not worth this, and you're actually paying less. It's a pain in the ass, complicated. But look, we're saying it's still a shell game. It's still a hustle. It's still you're not dealing with real money, nothing tangible. The shit you buy is tangible, but the actual asset itself. When back in was it the 60s or when they got off the gold standard? That's when money doesn't have any value. Even when I was a kid, my uncle gave me a bunch of silver certificates.
Okay,
those are like $5 bills they have silver backing them.
But you're talking about something in the 60s now. So Richard Nixon, okay, Richard Nixon when he got busted and he was being interviewed by Frost, he said, "If the president does it, it's not illegal." That's horseshit, but that represents the mindset of these power-hungry people. They exist in a different world. They don't follow the same rules that you and I do. These people are the protected class. You see, nothing affects their world. They live in an insulated world. When they had that meeting last year in Davos, and there was that tunnel that they're going to build from Switzerland to northern Italy, underground train tunnel, and they had this Baphomet ceremony with all these cosplay people in costumes, and you saw all these weird like pagan costumes and imagery.
Orange pants and masks, and they were dancing in sync. And
yes,
they're doing a whole ceremony.
And those are the people that attend those ceremonies. What we're painting here is a picture of reality, of the true reality, because you are so coked up, and I'm talking about Coca-Cola. You are so coked up, and you got so much sugar in your bloodstream, and so much GMO food in your body, and your gut is rebelled against you and is making all types of sickness form in your body. And you are arguing with people that you don't know on the internet. You allow your children to be bullied by people you don't know on the internet. You are so distracted and confused by everything is going on. Meanwhile, Skeletor is chilling in Snake Mountain, laughing his ass off because the people down in the valley still have no clue about what's really going on. And so now people are so caught up with racism and all this stuff that they put in front of you to just keep you preoccupied and keep your mind off of them. They even created a virus. They funded the development of weaponizing a virus in a lab. And they use that to crash the economy. See, this is the pump and dump again. Crash the economy and create the space for greater control through digital access, lack of human contact, paranoia, bigotry, fear. And so now you're ordering all this stuff online. And you're using things with digital currency and paying with things through reserves. And so now they have this, they can pull up your rap sheet. Oh, you think you don't have a rap sheet because you ain't ever been to jail. Bullshit. All your offenses on social media, all of your spending, all your porn addictions, the weird kinks that you're into. There's nothing that you've left to imagination. You put it all out there because you just share everything. You take pictures of your food that you're eating and you send it to people. What are we talking about here? We're talking about you have given your power away. This is a reoccurring theme if you don't notice on this show. We talk about people not giving your power away. You know, no matter which episode you go through, it's somehow related to people giving their power away. I'll say about 90% of the episodes that we've put out, and we're almost at 100 now, people giving their power away. But the banks, they control the treadmill. They're controlling the treadmill that you're on. They're controlling the speed of your hamster wheel.
But they're the ones taking the carrot in front of you, though. They're the ones that are making you do this behavior, this rat race. You're more concerned about mortgage than you are about freedom. You're more concerned about cars than you are about, actual mobility in society or physical mobility. Like, hey, I want to go here and buy this land. They keep you distracted because if you can corrupt the whole government, or you can, or the World Bank. Remember that was a big deal with Gaddafi being killed? There was only two nations in Africa that didn't have the World Bank, and Gaddafi was one of them. Another one, I forgot. I don't want to give you. Ethiopia has one, but it wasn't. It was another nation that didn't have it.
Tanzania.
Had the world. Tanzania, yeah, and they didn't have the World Bank. And so why is that such a big deal? Because that's their bread and butter. They fund wars between these little nations. They don't care about the actual human collateral.
It's the dope game, man. It is the dope game. That's all it is, extrapolated into a financial realm. That's it. Give me your resources. Give me your resources, and I will give you a villa in Switzerland. I'll send your kids to school, and I'm going to give you credit. I'm going to give you zeros and ones. I'm going to give you zeros and ones, and you just give me them fucking diamonds. Or you give me that cobalt. Or you give me
these are cartels.
that mineral.
They eliminate each other on a daily basis. They engulf the other one. But then they make us, fund this bullshit, and they take your money, and they take your dignity, and you know how it is. But the reason this is so important is because we're trying to tell you that they really don't have power. And we try to tell you that, like, hey, buy gold, buy land, buy real shit that appreciates.
Mm-hmm.
Vehicles don't appreciate. Vehicles depreciate. Your house will appreciate.
Right.
The only problem is, can you afford to make that payment for 30 years? Or another thing, be careful of sentimentality. That sentimental value sometimes ain't got no real value, and that shit will fuck you in the long run. sometimes going on to ask
yes, but also
on some things, not everything.
not everything. I think real estate doesn't always, sentimentality doesn't always apply, because my father used to say, get you some land because they're not making more of it. When you have a piece of property, keep it for as long as you can, if possible. The reason why is because it's going to appreciate and the value will go up. What did you tell me about your fucking house? You said, man, if I would have held the motherfucker for another year, I would have made crazy money off the shit. Did you not say this?
Of course. But we didn't know COVID was happening.
But they did. They did. As a matter of fact, it was planned to crash the economy and bring about the central bank digital currency, CBDC. I want y'all to look that up. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. And it's how they will eventually take control over the blockchain sphere and control all of that. Everybody's like, no, they can't because it's decentralized. They will. They will buy them all out. That's long money, man. They got patience. It's chess, not checkers. So, consolidation is another trend where banks merge. And as banks get bigger, they lend less. Now, anybody that's been adult for long enough and has to go and get a loan will tell you that you're better off going to smaller banks. Get a loan from a smaller bank or a credit union because you're going to get a better deal. And the criteria is not as great as it is with a bigger bank. A bigger bank doesn't want to loan you shit. They just want to keep taking and taking and taking from you. That's all. Dude, get a loan from a small bank if you need a loan. If you're buying a house, you're buying a car, starting a business, get it from a small bank. These names sound familiar? Citigroup, Chase, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Those are all large banks, and they bought up smaller ones. They used to have this one here in Atlanta called Wachovia. We used to call it Watchovia. And they were a bank out of North Carolina. They got bought up. They got bought the fuck up. They all get bought up, man. You know what I'm saying? But this is the thing. You have to adapt in life because you're dealing with people who worship scientism on one side, and on the other side, they worship Baal or Baphomet or Saturn. It's all Saturn worship either way. But these people have this evolutionary reptilian mindset. And they're all about, aggressive mentalities, when it comes to banking. All this dog eat dog shit that you see like in corporate, think tanks and corporate offices, that it comes from this reptilian mindset. But see, you have to know how they think so you can fight accordingly or be agile enough to navigate this landscape to survive, because they will keep coming after everything that you have.
Look, you do a lot of these behaviors are out of desperation. You got to have a vehicle to get to work, so you finance one, and the life of the loan is like 6-7 years now. But car is only good for 4.5 years. And then you got to start getting repairs on it and things like that. Or you get the
and you really can't. Let's tell the truth. It's really not smart to have just one car. It's not.
Oh,
it's not.
It's one of the hardest decisions because, okay, do I have two cars and maybe have to work on one, or do I have one car that's supposed to be great, but it's still all it takes is the battery being dead. All it takes is you're late to work.
The motor mount, the fucking the gasket seals, the fucking all this shit. You got to get a tune up, and you got some car that requires like expensive ass parts, so they're import parts. A tune up is like $500 and shit. I'm like, man, God,
600. 600.
Yeah.
But then you find out that it's $112 an hour for labor.
Yep.
So it was actually a 2-hour job to do the tune-up, or let's say a 3-hour job to do the tune-up, but you find out $340 of that was labor.
Dude, no, the crazy part is if you ever had to put like new gasket heads on the engine, dude, the part is $135.
Oh no, hold
Wait,
it.
hold it. Wait, no, no,
The
I'm not
gasket
done.
head,
I'm not done. The fucking labor will cost you
$100.
$1,200.
Okay, hold it. The actual gasket for a vehicle is $30. The gasket is either rubber or depending on what year your vehicle is. Some old gas actually made a cork on the older car. The part itself is $36. It's all labor. You tell me. So this is what we mean by they create a need. They create this fear. They create, oh my God, I can't get to work. Oh my God, I can't get my kids to
Scarcity.
hospital.
Famine. It's a famine mentality.
And so they learned that from the World War I and II and how this works and how you control people through fear. And
Bro, do you remember the show we had called Survive the Winter?
Oh, it's a long, cold winter.
It was in February. We did it in the coldest month, in the shortest month of the year. It was called Survive the Winter. And it's about this famine mentality. I'm looking outside right now as we record this, and I'm looking at the autumn leaves turning. And I got a winter jacket on because it's in the low 40s right now, and it's, breezy and cold and shit. It feels like it's 30ish, And I look at people going about, I'm not talking about, the white people bundle up, jogging with their fucking strollers and their dogs on a leash and all that bullshit. No. I'm talking about the people with the ashy knuckles, okay, with no gloves on, with a thin ass coat on, and a crazy look in their eyes. I'm talking about the desperation. I'm talking about how people change up with the seasons. I'm talking about how everybody starts to get a little more scarce. My home got broken into for the first and only time during Christmas while I was out buying gifts for my family. You know what I'm saying? And some crackhead motherfucker came in while I was gone and busted into my shit. Fortunately, they didn't get a whole lot of shit, but they took some stuff that was of value. Long story short is desperation. Duct Tape just mentioned people doing things out of desperation. And you don't have to be a crackhead to do things out of desperation. You can be a person who needs to purchase things to make more money. You ever heard the saying, it takes money to make money? You're damn straight it does. You gotta go, and you need a decent vehicle to move around and be a functional adult. Listen, man, even in New York City, you really need a car. Because if you don't have a car in New York City, you're only grocery shopping at certain places. Listen now, I was in the tri-state area 3 months ago. I go up there, maybe twice a year. But what I noticed is that when I would go to New Jersey and I would go to the outer boroughs, people had cars. But everybody in the city, they were fucked because they were dependent on public transportation. And so when the coronavirus shut everything down, all those people that were in the city were victims. They were all victims and they had nowhere to go.
What he's telling it's impossible to stock up. Okay, fine. You could survive in New York under normal circumstances without a vehicle, without a car, your subway, bus, whatever. But if you want to stock up on toilet paper, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, but a national emergency shuts down the train lines. A pandemic shuts down the train lines. There's no buses running. Hold on. And there's no food coming into the city. So then you can't even go to the next state over, which is 15 minutes, and go and get some more food.
Shit. Nope. So that illusion of superiority because you live in a major city.
No, you're just an ignorant snob, and you're not even aware of like how ignorant you are, and it's blissful to you because you think it's great because you can just go. You can get a latte on every corner. Wake the fuck up. You have to get a car, and you need more than one. You see what's going on here? This is you needing assets. you need assets, and you need to own your home and not rent a home, because then when you own your home, the only person that you have to answer to is the person that you borrowed that money from to buy that house. Really. Because of course you're going to pay, your utilities and all that. That's standard shit. But the more freedom that you have, and I'm talking about agency, I'm talking about, all right, well, now I can generate my own power because I have a power plant on my roof powered by the sun. So now I'm selling electricity back to the power companies. So now lights don't go off for me because I got battery reserves that will hold me for about 20 hours on a charge. What I'm talking about is looking at these financial institutions as methods of control. We're still talking about banks here because everything that we've been speaking about is something that's affected by currency, and currency that's generated by a privately owned bank organization.
Okay.
Hold on. One last thing. Hold on. One more thing about this. What I want to say is when the housing bubble popped in late 2007, early 2008.
I'm going there.
And it caused the economy to crash and brought us into a recession again. The Department of Justice did not go and prosecute any of those lenders. Those people were not held accountable, even though they want to call it predatory lending
practices.
Yes, none of those people, none of them. In actuality, what happened is these large corporations got a pass because they were too big to fail. So hold on, if they're too big to fail, what do you know that we don't know?
Yeah, they get bailouts and all this other. Okay, here's, I don't even know where to start. I want to say it correctly. I don't want to sound stupid. We've been brainwashed by TV, movies, and news and everything
to be
else.
A good citizen.
Oh no, not that. We've been brainwashed that these are good business practices. And if it's good for business, it's good for everybody. Or if it's good for business and bad for the individual, it's accepted. And there's a problem with that because when the white folks talk about the old America of the 50s and 60s and going into the 70s and maybe early 80s, we were number one. And those business practices did not outweigh. Okay, look, we still take care of the American people. We still service the American people. We cared about the American people back then. Now, fast forward to the late 80s, all you saw were these movies and like Boardroom and the Wall Street, all these different movies, buy, sell. And so we started doing these business practices that were just real shady. And fast forward to now we saw this with the economy. We ran out of toilet paper. That would never have happened back in the day because they weren't producing too much toilet paper. They had enough people working. The numbers were perfect. Now it's just the opposite where, okay, we're sending out the bare minimum of toilet paper, but we're charging a premium price. And what I'm saying is that seems like a good business practice. Another thing you've heard me talk about in past podcasts is what the stock price is. Your stock price is supposed to be the financial health of your company or your organization or whatever it is, right? But all of a sudden, hey, we need the stock price to go up. What's the easiest thing? What's the easiest way to make a stock price go up? Fire people. So that is artificially manipulating the stock price. By you fire 5,000 people, your stock price goes up $10, $12, and that makes value for your shareholders, but that doesn't do shit for the American economy. Now, all of a sudden, you're worried about your numbers, but you don't have enough people to maintain, but people maintain anyway because at the beginning they're like, yeah, I'm lucky to have a job, so I work even harder. It's a fucking manipulation on the highest of levels. And so the point I'm trying to make is that all these numbers can be manipulated, and they don't really mean shit. They don't have they don't mean what you think they mean. But then we got a bunch of people not working. They need resources. They need products. They need shit. The government has to step in to help out. Then here's another thing. Because, like I said, we brought this up on past podcasts. It was me, you, and your brother, and we were talking, and he was explaining how it was going down in his part of the world. when they were firing people and, hiring. And I'm like, and he's like, hey, listen, I'm like, nah, cuz they do that everywhere. And that's another thing that we don't ever recognize is that what you're going through at your company, what you're going through in your department, they're all going through. And that's what I deal with as a labor rep. I got people coming, hey, you don't know what they're going through, duct tape. They doing this to us. I'm like, oh, really? So what are they doing? They're doing this shit in every department. And so what happens is we what's the word I'm looking for? We become conditioned to believe that we're the only ones going through this. And if we paid attention and recognized that everybody was going through this, we could take a united front and fix it. Whether we walk out and get their attention, or whether we do, or whether we have, okay, fuck it, we're all going to buy from this company right here and fuck these other three companies because they don't support labor, or their CEO is a pedophile. That's the shit that we need to be doing. That's what it's important to communicate to each other, to come up with a plan. I always use the example of black folks because, hey, I'm black folks. Back in the day, we boycotted. That's how we controlled our enemies. We would boycott them. And, the most famous one, of course, is the bus boycott, where you have people walking for months, almost a year, and then, okay, well, damn, you damn near put the buses out of business. We can't have that. So we need to come up with a plan to attack these companies, these banks, in a way that makes them respect you. A prime example, remember the big lawsuit that was against Wells Fargo for charging too many fees. People basically went to court, and they're like, hey, that's why Wells Fargo doesn't charge fees anymore. If you go overdraft, they'll pay it. They'll let you go weeks without saying anything. That's because they were getting people over, like, being overdraft. They were causing the overdraft. Like, literally, they would take money out of one of your accounts, put it in the other account. That would cause you to overdraft you. By the time you got back, you got $35 in fees. So people can affect these banks. We don't believe it because we're told, like, oh, we have to accept what they do to us, but that's not true. We don't have to accept that. And we're not being victims on purpose. We just think, like, our adversary is so big. Plus, with the title Federal Reserve, you think they're official. You think that these are a government entity, and they're not. These are just people making money, stealing money, it's just like back in the day when you would watch, like, Billy Do Right, and the bank will foreclose on the property. That's real shit. Back then, it was a joke. It happened every once in a while. The only people losing their houses were farmers. But the people in the city was good. Now it's just the opposite. The farmers are keeping their farms, and people in the city are losing their houses at an alarming rate. So you got to recognize that shit. Yeah. Go ahead, Roscoe. I'm sorry.
Well, the farmers maintain their farm because they offer a commodity. And those people in the city have nothing to offer except for their property.
Nope. They can't make money off their property
because they've gotten so used to being the proletariat. That person that offers their labor for money or labor for security. You see? So you have to shift your thinking. Everybody won't be able to do it, and motherfuckers will suffer. It's the human existence. There will always be suffering. Always. So there are those of you that will hear this and perhaps make changes and adapt your mindset towards expenditures and investments. We're not saying that the picture is grim and it's going to be shitty for the rest of your life. Not at all. All we're merely saying is that this is the financial institution that controls this country. It is more secretive than the CIA. It is more powerful than the President of the United States or even the military. Understand how they function. Understand what types of chaos they bring about in our society, so that when you see this trend taking shape again and that wave is starting to swell up, and before it reaches that crest, you're already prepared for when that tsunami crashes down and everybody else around you, you're in a hydrofoil. Or you're in a submarine just getting tossed around, but you're still okay. Bottom line is, you have to prepare for the future, whether you have children or not, whether you like it or not. Because it's going to determine the quality of life that you live. And how you die. Okay? Let's talk about that for a second. How do you want to die? Do you want to die plugged into a wall in a hospital? unable to pay for those medical bills? Or do you want to die surrounded by the people that you love on your own terms, as healthy as you can for somebody at your age?
Look, we used to joke about this. I'm like, man, if I'm in a coma, nigga, for like 10 years and I wake up to $5 million in bills, just pull the plug, motherfucker. You joke about that shit. But they're forcing you to make decisions about health because, like, damn, I got to go into $30,000 of debt, but it's my kid. I got to do this. And then you're in debt for the rest of your life. And the thing is, they want you to make that. Your kid's not worth it. Yeah, of course my kid's worth it. But did you really need to spend that much money? You're causing all kinds of grief and fucking up my life and all this shit. Yeah, it's a hustle because no, you mean to tell me your kid's not worth $100,000? Like, yeah, of course he is. Of course she is. That now you're stuck in the system. You're beholden to these motherfuckers.
Okay, but let's talk about something even deeper. Something that most black people lack completely is generational wealth. Because we're still talking about banks and we're talking about money. So you have small kids, or you have kids that are going to college soon, or will be going to college. Are you thinking about putting money aside to help them to get into school? Are you going to help them to get a car so they can have a better existence than you did? Or do you want this kid to struggle just as much as you did and go through the same exact shit that you did just because you think it's the right fucking thing to do? Because if you do, all you're doing is just passing that fucking baton of fucking struggle to that young person. Hold on, man. This is the deal. These kids, your kids you don't have yet, these kids are your legacy. They are your wealth. They are what extends your bloodline beyond the grave. And so what type of legacy do you want to have? Do you want to continue the same Negro legacy of struggle in America? Do you want to keep this shit going? Do you want 5 more generations of black motherfuckers struggling in America, in a world that by that time has become so totalitarian that it controls you from the inside out by controlling your thoughts and your impulses, where that child could have had more leverage in this playing field, on this field of combat, against these future opponents and creatures that will come for them?
Hold it. These kids don't listen. Like me and you, one of the things that I had explained, like me and you look up to our parents. Whether they're perfect or not doesn't matter. I heard this girl on Facebook going on this rant about her parents being broke and not giving her this, that, and that. This is a grown woman, like maybe looked like she was in her 30s, 29, 30, something like that. And she's just going on, and I'm like, your parents weren't broke in spite of you, you dumb motherfucker. They probably broke because of you. You know what I'm saying? You probably caught, kids early.
Wow. You just said some shit right there.
People don't get it. So this bitch is talking about what their mom and dad couldn't give them. See, and because people like to make comments, you don't have biological children. You don't know what it's like. Look, I know this. My mama never felt guilty. I know your parents. They never felt guilty. They did what they had to do.
No.
And like, okay.
You couldn't pay my parents to feel guilty.
Not your dad.
Not my mom, not my dad. Listen, my mom would tell you to go fuck yourself. My dad would be like, nah, motherfucker, you got me fucked up.
But here's the point I'm trying to make, is that you got people going to counseling because they feel guilty over their children. Well, they feel guilty about...
Man, you better get a grip.
Or they feel guilty because they can't buy Jordans for them. And so now that kid has the upper hand. They're manipulating the situation. They know how to say, Mom, you can't afford these, so I'm going to sell drugs. I'm going to go to jail if you don't. All of a sudden, the kid no longer lives with the parents. Like I said, you got to remember, this is something that nobody wants to admit.
But see, hold on a second. Also, hold that thought for a second. You see that kid feeling like they need all the flyest and freshest shit. You're already fucking up. Hold on. As a parent, you're already failing. You're failing already if your kid is focused on material bullshit.
Look, but your parents are supposed to say no, and that kid should accept it. You know what I'm saying? I remember, like, the first time I stole, my mom said, man, your daddy beat the shit out of you. He was like 2 years old. You wanted some candy, you put it in your pocket and walked out the store, he beat the shit out. That right there. So, it's so much. But the biggest factor is in wealth. We're talking about generational wealth, but having kids before high school's over, having kids out of wedlock, not getting a high school, all those little things right there.
First of all, anybody that does not have kids before high school, I commend you. Okay,
it's hard.
Look, it's hella hard because the sex is there. You know what I'm saying?
And like cold running pussy all over the place. You know what I'm saying?
It's there. But the thing is that, like, okay, cool. Now you made it out of high school. Congratulations. That means you have made it all the way through your the first portion of your developmental years without having to carry a life or worry about feeding another human being.
Or having to make those decisions.
Yes.
They're different. So, but here's the point I'm trying to make. Those decisions can put you in poverty. They'll make it hard for you to earn. They'll make it hard. You got to have daycare. You got to have health care. If you're lucky, maybe your mom and dad will step in and take the kids through your college years.
So then check this out. So then that creates a person that is really, really, really pragmatic. Hold it. You hold your fire. Because the thing is that person will have a limited scope of conversation. And so, don't get me wrong. They can still talk with you on a lot of different subjects. But they may not be as well read on certain things because they have been focused on survival of their offspring. So this person ain't backpacking in Europe. This person ain't going to fucking...
surviving ain't living. Surviving ain't living.
That's right.
I'm talking about that in the relationship with me and my lady, my now wife. Is like, hey, she had to make decisions based on, I got these kids, I got to do this, I got to do that. Now you're in a situation where you're thriving, but you're still living like you're struggling. And you make these dire decisions that, like, oh, fuck it, I won't get my car fixed. It's like, baby, why are you driving with a car like that? Because she's used to not having the ability to do that, and so she has to make a decision. Either you feed your kids or you fix your car. Now, go back. Here, I forgot that fast. What about, okay, so what about this conversation? Like, you done dated a bunch of chicks. We in college, right? You know, your college years. And you dating a chick, and her mom or dad, they got the kid. They're raising the kid. Now, she graduates, you dating her, but now that you graduated, you got a job, how come you ain't go back and get your kid? Because that was the conversation. Like, yeah, my parents going to take care of him or her.
Run.
And then when they do get the kid, they don't know how to relate. Or worse, they're in competition with the kid for the affection of the parent. Because that's not your son, I'm your son, I'm your daughter. That's not your daughter, I'm your daughter. And you treat her like, well, shit, we had to take on that responsibility. And it became like our child. But you got some issues. Like, you get mad when your daughter calls me mom or dad. All that shit. All that shit. So the conversations we're having is, you know, there's nothing wrong with planning your life out. People think that's so offensive. Like, hey, I got a plan. Who do you think you are?
I'm me, motherfucker. Like, I'm not you.
I'm accountable for my actions. You know what I'm saying? I don't just trip up in some shit. Like, hey, look, I've told you guys this, and my brother knows this. When I fail, when I fuck up, it takes me a lot longer to recover. I ain't got that support system. I ain't got that last name that means some shit. I don't look like certain people. So I can do the exact same mistakes as 8 other people, and whether they white, black, Puerto Rican, whatever, they can recover faster than me. I ain't got that. It's me. I was on my own early. I'm not saying nothing bad about parents and nothing like that. I'm just like, that's the way I was. We were on ventures. My brother told you this. Like, hey, we just wouldn't did shit. But the point I'm going to make is that you got to recognize early that the decisions you make affect you in the long run. And this banking thing, this thing where they make you think you got to get a loan to get a car or whatever, that's a hustle.
That's a hustle.
Or when you overpay for the shit. But I'm going to tell you like this. I bought my first car when I was 15. You know this, but I couldn't drive until I was 16 because I couldn't afford to drive until I was damn near 17. So my mom said, hey, we're going to get
that was a truck, right?
Yeah, my Nissan. So she's like, hey, we found one, got it for like $3,000. I started making payments. I was paying $126 a month. How
long did it take you to pay it off?
I paid it off right before college. I paid it off like my first year of college.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is that my homeboys had Jordans. I had a car.
Yeah,
I'm paying
nigga,
120.
me, I had Jordans, but guess what? I bought those Jordans. My
No,
mom or
hold
parents
it,
didn't buy that shit.
hold it. That's the whole thing.
But
Everything you
well,
had, you bought.
hold on now, hold on
Everything
now.
you had, you bought.
When I did get a car, I went and bought one for $800, and I was still rolling, driving around like everybody else.
No.
I
That was
wasn't. Oh,
because
no. This is
I
actually
didn't.
really good. This is a good conversation
No,
because
but
I wasn't
but
making any payments.
how old was I when I got my first Jordan? I didn't get my first Jordan until after college. I couldn't
Wow.
afford them. Oh no, I'm lying. I bought the Jordan boots from like Marshalls. Those were on sale. But
Yeah.
I didn't.
You didn't go to
I
Foot
just
Locker
got,
and buy them motherfuckers brand new.
no. I did not. And so, people would talk. You ain't got no James or whatever. I'm like, no. You know this. I got a wicked shoe game. So that wasn't the issue. It was just that I'm a discount buyer because I knew I had. I had
But
to
you
make a
always
profit.
been that motherfucker. Your mom got you like that.
Oh yeah, I'm a black Jew. I don't spend no money. I'm real. But
Now you do. You do spend money on shit that you like.
oh, dude, hey, we done stole shit we like too. Like I remember, it was a couple times me and you went on escapades where like, dude, I can't believe I got this magazine. I know. I remember it was Batman versus Spawn. I remember I jacked that shit. We was reading that shit in the car driving back to Memphis or something. So what I'm saying is that yeah, thrifting is important, but investing is important. Recognizing that what's an asset and what's a liability. Vehicles are a liability, but they're so important for you to get to work and get around. They're so important to your mental health, your social health, getting the pussy. And so it's a big part. And these banks know that. They know that that's why they have these. That's why these car companies spend so much money on commercials. That's why these used car places. You got Carvana. You got all these different avenues for getting a vehicle because they know a vehicle is such a big part of the American process.
It's
Renting instead of owning.
agency. It allows
Yes.
you freedom. You can drive all over the city. You can drive to the countryside. You can go fishing. You know what
Other
I'm
states,
saying?
your ability, like, you know what? I don't like my life here. Fuck it. Jump in your car and
Yep.
go. And
I want to
so,
go see a
back,
different life.
yeah, back in the day, people used to hitchhike across America, or they would drive across America and stuff like that. They were doing that so they could broaden their horizons and see
Dude,
what
a
else was out
bicycle
there.
taught me that shit at fucking 7 years old. I'm like,
That's what I was talking about. Me and
oh,
you, we ride for miles.
dude, across the entire city. You know what I'm saying? And like, I was able to see different lifestyles and the different levels of society all on a bicycle, and that taught me a lot of shit. And my first job at 10 years old with a paper out taught me responsibility, taught me the value of a dollar, which brings us back to our topic, and it's about the banks and how they created a system of control. And that's all it is a system of control. Folks, we're coming into the holiday season now. And everybody is looking, today is Halloween. All right, we're recording this on Halloween. And, it's still the morning time, so it hasn't gotten dark yet. But when it gets dark, there'll be a bunch of kids walking around in costumes. And, they're going to be celebrating one of the unique American holidays. And I say that because, people can be like religious and shit, be like, oh, it's the devil's holiday. Hey, man, fuck all that, okay? Halloween is a time of joy, straight up and down. It is a
Man,
time
candy,
of joy for children.
kids,
Bro, let's keep
kids
it all the
rapping.
way 100 because there's nowhere in the world can you go and get free candy. Nowhere. And then
Not
there's
like this.
nowhere in the world that
Not
shows
these numbers.
a fucking bunch of dope ass horror movies for an entire month. Nowhere. Here. But see, I brought those little kids up because they have parents that watch over them and raise them. And then 60 days from now, or excuse me, another 24 days from now, some of those kids are going to be expecting gifts from their parents. And 10 days from now, 15 days, 3 weeks from now, those parents are out busting their ass. And the smart ones already went and got their gifts already, but they're trying to make
Buying a turkey.
the holidays legit for their kids so that they can see that child express joy because they know what makes their kid happy. But there's all this stuff in the way. There's all this shit in the way. I mean, hell, even going back to these reptilian motherfuckers, BlackRock was given stewardship control over the pandemic relief fund. So this investment organization that bought up all the distressed real estate after the housing bubble burst is the same motherfuckers that got control over the pandemic relief fund for the coronavirus. So you have all this people out here just trying to live. Okay, I brought those kids trick-or-treating because those kids just want to be happy and experience joy.
Look,
and they want to make it to Christmas and have the same thing.
You know, the same motherfuckers you're talking about were getting bailouts and shit like that. You know, these big corporations were getting bailouts. And all the while, they were causing the most grief, or that money didn't filter down to the people like it's supposed to. That's the shit we're talking about. Fuck them.
Right. But President Biden has this tax bill that he wants to push through and is being stalled right now in the Congress because he wants to peek into your bank account if you have $600 or more.
$600 or more.
Hey, listen. Stop voting for motherfuckers because they remind you of somebody else that's cool. Okay? Or stop putting pictures or images, projecting images onto these sociopath politicians because all they want is more control. And he is working at the behest of banks, privately run banks that want to get more control China, of your life.
China is in his pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, you got to pay attention to his behavior and his actions. Where does his loyalty lie? Because I don't see it lying with us, the people.
Yeah. Well, look, what we're saying is, and all we've been saying is, quit giving up control. Stop giving away your power. And banks are looking to get more and more control over your life and to do it for cheaper on the dollar. So be careful where you invest your money. If you can, just get a loan from a small bank and build a relationship with a small bank. You may have a bank account at a larger bank for prestige or whatever strokes your ego. Go and open a small account at a small bank. Buy a CD from them and show that you are trustworthy and you are credit worthy and you can build a relationship with them, a lending relationship, so that when, you know, these thoughts, these big 3, big 4 banking thoughts feel like you not swaggy enough for them to give you a loan on that next house you want to get, well, you know what? Your bottom bitch side piece at the small bank is going to be there for you. So be smarter than the dollar you're spending. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Hey, holla back.